Um, so what do an Indian sailor trapped in the Middle East, a massive AI server farm in Shanghai,
Hmm.
and your morning diet soda all have in common?
I mean, on the surface, absolutely nothing.
Right. Nothing at all. But it is Friday, July 17th, 2026, and honestly, in the last 24 hours, we've basically watched the hidden vulnerabilities in all of our most complex global systems just, well, suddenly snap.
Yeah, it's been wild.
It really has. We are looking at a massive news dump today from the Daily Tech Reader, and it covers a truly dizzying spectrum. I mean, we're talking historic financial market crashes, global conflicts escalating overnight, completely unexpected breakthrough science, and a generational sporting event happening this weekend.
It's a staggering amount of data to process, but when you look closely, you realize these aren't isolated events.
Right.
Whether we were talking about, AI models or gut bacteria, we are looking at massive, totally unpredictable shifts in global systems. We're seeing exactly what happens when deeply interconnected frameworks suddenly find their invisible choke points totally exposed.
Exactly. And our mission today for this deep dive is to cut through that massive information overload. We're going to connect those dots so you can head into the weekend feeling, well, completely informed without just drowning in the data.
Definitely a good goal for a Friday.
Right. So let's start with the most literal physical choke point happening right now. And that is the geopolitical powder keg in the Middle East, specifically around the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, that situation it's moving fast.
It really is. But before we get into the details, I need to state something very, very clearly up front. The sources we are pulling from today contain highly politically charged developments regarding the ongoing conflict between the U.S. and Iran.
Very charged.
Yeah. So we're not taking any sides or endorsing any viewpoints here. We are strictly and impartially reporting the facts exactly as they are contained in the source material. We're just looking at the data.
Which is absolutely essential, because the situation on the ground is moving at breakneck speed.
Right. So here's what the sources confirm as of this morning. The U.S. military has launched its 7th consecutive night of airstrikes on Iran.
7 nights.
7. And CENTCOM is officially expanding this campaign beyond purely military targets now. And in response, Iran has fired its largest volley since the peace talks collapsed.
Wow.
Yeah, they struck Qatar twice, and they significantly damaged a desalination plant in Kuwait. And the rhetoric is it's escalating right alongside the munition.
Obviously.
A senior IRGC advisor warned of a, quote, full-scale offensive if the U.S. strikes continue into the weekend. And they also explicitly threatened Persian Gulf ports after the U.S. destroyed an Iranian surveillance tower near the Strait of Hormuz.
And it's expanding beyond just that immediate area, too.
Right, because on top of that, Axios is reporting that the U.S. is sending dozens of aerial refueling planes to Israel. And Iran just struck the U.S.-allied Kurdistan region of Iraq, killing 8 people.
Which was a move heavily condemned by Kurdistan's president, Nechervan Barzani.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I hear what the sources are saying about the desalination plant, but, I mean, isn't that overstating the global economic impact? Like, striking local water infrastructure is devastating for Kuwait, obviously. But how does that actually freeze the broader global economy?
Well, because that desalination plant is a glaring warning sign, right? It's about the fragility of regional infrastructure.
Okay.
I mean, the Gulf is incredibly dry. So destroying water processing proves that critical life-sustaining systems are now actively in the crosshairs. But to answer your question about the global economy, you have to look past the military hardware.
Look at what then?
Look at the human logistics. Global trade relies on the Strait of Hormuz, but ships, well, they do not drive themselves.
Right. You need the crews.
Exactly. And that is where the real choke point just clamps shut, because India is the world's 3rd largest supplier of seafarers.
Wait, really? 3rd largest?
Yeah. They supply over 300,000 sailors to the global maritime workforce. And following an IRGC strike on the MV-GFS Galaxy that killed a 3rd engineer, who, by the way, was an Indian national pharaoh, India has officially barred its citizens from entering the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, wow. So you can have all the massive cargo ships in the world, but if a 1/3 of the world's maritime labor force is legally prohibited from piloting them through a war zone, the entire supply chain basically just freezes.
Precisely. And this is exactly why gold is hovering near $4,019 an ounce right now as a safe haven.
That makes total sense.
It's why energy stocks are the week's biggest gainers. The market isn't just reacting to bombs, it's reacting to the sudden realization that the human element of the oil supply chain might just walk away. They're pricing in sheer uncertainty.
Wow. Okay, so while the Middle East is driving this massive flight to safety in traditional commodities, the real earthquake in the financial markets today came from the digital world.
Yeah, totally different choke point.
Right. The epicenter wasn't Hormuz this time, it was Shanghai,
The AI sector just had its foundation totally rattled.
to put it mildly. So, get this. A Chinese startup called Moonshot just unveiled their Kimi K3 model at the World AI Conference.
Right.
And our sources show this is a 2.8 trillion parameter open-weight AI model. And the benchmarks indicate it actually rivals Anthropic's Fable 5 and OpenAI's GPT 5.6.
Which is huge.
It's massive.
Yeah.
This triggered an immediate market shock that the sources are actively comparing to the 2025 DeepSeek shock. I mean, the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index fell 5.7% on Friday alone.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's down over 20% from late June. So it's officially entering a bear market in its worst week since the April 2025 tariff shock. Even the VanEck Semiconductor ETF fell 9% this week.
And we should probably clarify what those specs actually mean for the industry, because a 2.8 trillion parameter model is staggeringly complex.
How so?
Well, think of parameters kind of like the synaptic connections in a human brain, right?
Right.
But the real threat to U.S. tech giants isn't just how smart the model is, it's that it's open weight.
Right.
Yeah, that means developers worldwide can download the core architecture and modify it for free. They don't have to pay massive subscription fees to access a locked proprietary model via an API anymore.
Which perfectly explains why Google is completely scrambling right now. I mean, the sources say they are targeting today for the launch of Gemini 3.5 Pro.
Right, trying to steal back the spotlight.
Exactly. And they're touting a 2 million token context window, which essentially means, you could upload a dozen massive textbooks into the AI, and it can remember and reason through all of them simultaneously.
Without forgetting page one, yes.
Exactly. It also features deep think reasoning. But get this, they apparently had to scrap and completely rebuild their base model just to fix gaps in math, SVG generation, and recursive tool calling.
And those are critical foundational gaps, to be clear.
What is SVG generation exactly?
So SVG generation is how an AI draws images using raw math and geometry, rather than just mashing pixels together.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And recursive tool calling is when an AI basically acts as its own project manager. It writes code, tests it, realizes it failed, and then rewrites it on a continuous loop, totally without human intervention.
Wow. So if Google's foundational model was failing at those things, they absolutely had to rebuild.
They had no choice.
But looking at this semiconductor bloodbath, I mean, it feels like IBM is a landlord who suddenly realized their enterprise tenants aren't paying rent anymore because they took out a massive loan to buy a sports car. Are these enterprise companies starving their basic foundational software needs just to afford these massively expensive AI server chips?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that is exactly what is happening. The tech industry is currently facing a crushing two-front pressure campaign.
Two fronts.
Yeah. On one front, you have highly capable open-rate Chinese competitors like Moonshot. They're compressing the premium U.S. companies can actually charge.
Okay, and the second front?
On the second front, you have internal cannibalization.
Explain that internal cannibalization a bit more. Like, how does that work?
Look at the shocking data we got from IBM this week. IBM cratered 25% on Tuesday.
25% in one day.
In one day. That is the worst single-day drop in their entire 115-year history.
That is wild.
It's a steeper dive than their legendary crashes in 1968. And why did it happen? Because clients shifted their budgets at the absolute last minute over to AI servers.
They just dropped everything else.
Exactly. They completely starved IBM's traditional mainframe and software businesses just to pay for AI hardware. The AI boom is actively crowding out everyday enterprise software spending.
So corporate budgets are just being wildly reallocated.
Totally.
But, if we look at the sources, the everyday consumer landscape is honestly just as chaotic. Let's talk about Netflix and Uber for a second, because the contrast here is just wild.
Oh, yeah. The numbers this week are fascinating.
Netflix actually beat their Q2 estimates, and their ad revenue is impressively on track to hit $3 billion by 2026.
Sounds good on paper.
Right. But their shares tumbled 9% after hours to a 52-week low. And why? Because their Q3 revenue guidance of $12.86 billion slightly missed the $13 billion analyst target.
A slight miss on future projections, and the market punished them mercilessly.
Meanwhile, on the exact same day, Uber acquires Germany's delivery hero for $14.8 billion.
Massive deal.
Yeah. They're nearly doubling their footprint to 99 markets.
Yeah.
They're creating the largest food delivery platform outside of China. And all this corporate reshuffling is happening while Fed Chair Kevin Warsh is doubling down on changing the inflation framework.
Right, which just adds the thick layer of macroeconomic uncertainty to the whole mix.
Exactly. Oh, and I must add another mandatory impartiality note here. A Paramount investor has sued David and Larry Ellison, alleging an illegal side deal with the Trump administration to get U.S. regulatory approval for the Warner Bros. Discovery takeover. And again, we're strictly reporting the existence of this lawsuit from the sources. We are not weighing in on the legal or political validity of those claims. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
I am struggling to understand the consumer logic here. Uber is dropping $15 billion to expand global food delivery, while Netflix is projecting a slowdown and getting hammered by Wall Street. Are everyday consumers really prioritizing the physical convenience of, like, a cold burger delivery over affordable digital entertainment?
It sounds contradictory, I know, but we are witnessing a ruthless bifurcation in consumer spending right now.
What do you mean by bifurcation?
Well, consumers are auditing their lives. They are drawing a hard line between what is an essential service and what is a discretionary luxury.
Okay, that makes sense.
The streaming market is so heavily saturated that even a giant like Netflix is hitting a wall of consumer fatigue. But Uber's $15 billion bet, that relies on the idea that the sheer physical convenience of food delivery has transitioned from a luxury into an inelastic habit for the global middle class.
So it's basically a utility now.
Exactly. They are betting that delivering your dinner is now as baked into your weekly budget as your water or power bill.
So tech software is discretionary, but food delivery is essential.
In the mind of the modern consumer, yes. And if you want to see where spending is truly immune to all this macro volatility, you just have to look at the health sector.
Oh, for sure.
The sources show United Health blew past estimates with a $6.38 earnings per share. Abbott Labs easily beat their revenue estimates. Why? Because medical device demand remains incredibly robust, completely despite the Iran-driven macro headwinds or semiconductor crashes.
Right. I mean, people can cut their streaming subscriptions, but they really can't cut their pacemakers.
Exactly.
Which is actually an excellent transition, because since we're talking about health sector resilience on a macro scale, the sources have some really fascinating updates on what's happening on a micro level, like literally inside our bodies.
Yeah, the biology updates in today's dump are incredible, largely because they highlight how little we actually understand about our own metabolic systems.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's start with this massive new study on common artificial sweeteners. Millions of people consume these every single day.
Almost everyone I know.
Right. But the research shows they are fundamentally altering our gut bacteria. And it actually gets worse, because these altered bacteria are interacting unpredictably with everyday medications and caffeine.
That's the scary part.
Yeah, the study has already identified over 100 cases of this happening. And at the same time, the CDC is scrambling to hunt down the source of a Cyclospora parasitic outbreak.
Right.
It has already sickened over 400 people across 4 states, and they believe it's tied to fresh produce.
But it's not all bad news in the medical sector, thankfully.
No. The Alzheimer's breakthrough is genuinely stunning. There's this drug called KCL286. It was originally developed to treat spinal cord injuries.
Right.
But researchers just found that it is showing massive promise in mice for repairing DNA damage and cutting brain inflammation in Alzheimer's disease. And it does this by targeting multiple pathways.
It's incredible.
So what does this all mean? Because on a practical level, you might want to think twice about that diet sweetener in your morning coffee if it's going to unpredictably change the way your body processes your daily medication.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism binding all these biological stories together. It's the law of unintended consequences.
How do you mean?
Well, we think of medicine as a targeted missile, right?
Yeah.
But it's really more like changing the soil in a garden and wondering why the plants grow differently.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. I mean, how does a drug meant for a severed spine help a brain riddled with Alzheimer's? It turns out KCL286 targets the exact same inflammatory pathways that go into overdrive during both a spinal injury and brain plaque buildup.
Wow.
It's essentially flipping the same master-off switch for inflammation, but in 2 completely different parts of the body.
So it's basically an accidental miracle.
Exactly. But that exact same principle works in reverse for the artificial sweeteners.
Right.
You ingest a chemical designed to safely bypass your metabolism and save you some calories, but it accidentally changes the flora in your gut. The very bacteria responsible for breaking down the active ingredients in your heart medication or your morning caffeine.
It's all connected.
It is. And ironically, a consumer makes a proactive, healthy choice to eat fresh produce, and it leads to a 400-person parasitic outbreak. In biology, just like in global trade, we introduce a variable and blindly assume we can control the outcome.
We really do. We assume we have the whole board figured out, whether it's engineering our gut microbiomes or, managing global shipping lanes, and then a hidden variable just snaps and everything shifts.
Yep.
Which perfectly brings us from the unpredictable microscopic variables inside our gut to the absolute most macroscopic, highly anticipated physical variable taking place on the world stage this weekend.
The ultimate human spectacle.
Sunday's World Cup final, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, live at MetLife Stadium. It is Argentina versus Spain.
I cannot wait.
I know, right? And the narrative at play here is just staggering. It is the ultimate generational clash. You have 39-year-old Lionel Messi, who is somehow leading the Golden Boot race with 8 goals and 4 assists.
At 39.
At 39. And he is going up against Spain's 19-year-old prodigy, Lamine Yamal. And get this, Spain hasn't trailed for a single minute in this entire tournament.
The scale of that generational gap is it's difficult to comprehend.
It really is. I mean, Messi was already cementing his legacy as a global icon when Yamal was literally learning how to walk.
That's crazy to think about.
And now they are stepping onto the exact same pitch for the biggest prize in sports. Plus, Argentina is going for unprecedented historic dominance. If they win, it will be a 4th consecutive major tournament title.
Copa 21, World Cup 22.
Yep, Copa 24 and now potentially World Cup 26. It will be the first back-to-back World Cup win since Brazil managed it with Pelé back in 1958 and 1962.
History in the making.
Totally. And the broadcast numbers are really reflecting that history. Fox and Telemundo are expecting a record 55 million-plus viewers.
55 million.
Yeah, which makes it the most-watched U.S. sporting event in television history. It completely sets those networks up to dominate the 2030 rights talks.
Yeah.
And as a quick aside, Saturday also features the third-place match between France and England, where Kylian Mbappe will play.
Still a great match.
Oh, for sure. But if you are planning to attend any watch parties this weekend, the weather systems are putting on their own extreme show.
The climate variables are just as chaotic as the economic ones today.
Oh, absolutely. The Southeast is looking at severe storms with suffocating 105-degree heat indices. The northern plains are completely trapped under a massive heat dome. And the Southwest is facing severe flash floods from monsoon moisture.
How?
So you have this historic generational clash playing out under absolute extreme weather conditions all across the country.
And, if we tie that projected 55 million viewership back to our earlier discussion about media fragmentation.
Oh, right, like Netflix.
Exactly. Think about Netflix missing its revenue targets or Paramount dealing with lawsuits over messy mergers. We live in an era where everyone is just isolated in their own highly curated algorithmic bubble.
Very true.
Live sports, and specifically a World Cup final featuring arguably the greatest player of all time on U.S. soil, is the absolute last remaining monoculture.
The last monoculture.
Yeah. It is the only event left on the planet that can reliably unite 55 million eyeballs simultaneously. It is a shared human experience that completely defies the fragmentation we are seeing across the rest of the tech and media sectors.
It's the one time this weekend where the whole world will literally be experiencing the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Exactly.
So to wrap up this absolute whirlwind of a Friday, we have jumped from maritime choke points in the Strait of Hormuz to the collapsing semiconductor markets in Shanghai, from the unintended consequences of gut bacteria to the historic pitch at MetLife Stadium. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully you can see how connected these seemingly disparate events really are.
It all comes back to complex systems and their breaking points.
It really does.
And I'll leave you with this to consider. When the markets open on Monday, they're going to have to absorb an entire weekend of potential AI fallout, unpredictable geopolitical escalation in the Gulf, and the economic hangover of a historic sporting event.
It's going to be a heavy Monday.
For sure. We've talked deeply today about vulnerabilities, right? Desalination plants, maritime supply chains, enterprise software budgets, and even our gut microbiomes. So, as you head into the weekend under these massive weather heat domes, ask yourself, as our global systems become increasingly irreversibly hyper-connected, what is the next hidden choke point we haven't even noticed yet?
Man, because if today's deep dive proved anything, it's that human predictability is an illusion, and someone is always ready to kick the table. Stay curious out there, keep questioning the systems around you, and enjoy the match on Sunday. We'll see you on the next deep dive.